Hello, Scott Farkas here. This is part 2 of my experience with BariatricPal and Dr. Illan with my actual visit to Mexico and having the procedure. Just kind of picking up where we left off. Let's talk about day 3. So just had a great night's sleep. Day 3 I woke up and I really felt as good as new. And they tell you will, and I felt so terrible the day before that I didn't believe it until I woke up, and I just felt amazing. I had slept well. I was able to sleep on my right side that second night, which was a lifesaver as well. I don't sleep well on my back, but that was great. Went for a walk, did more walking. I was able to drink a little better. You know, each day the drinking gets easier and easier. But I walk the halls a lot, and they have a beautiful courtyard with fountains and patios, and there's palm trees and everything. It's really nice. But I'd walk out there and sit in the sun for a minute. One thing that I did that was really nice, it was kind of inspired by somebody else I saw there, is I went back to the room, because you know, you kind of just walking around in a hospital gown with your rear end hanging out is not any fun. But I went back and I grabbed a t-shirt and my gym shorts out of my bag and put those on, and the nurse came in and was very quick to come in and assist, and she actually, you know, there's a disconnect on your IV, and she pulled the disconnect and like rewired it so I could wear my t-shirt and shorts and feel like a human being, which is really important when you're in a hospital, despite how nice it is. So I was in t-shirt and shorts and my flip-flops, and I felt great. Lots of walking, lots of drinking. They came in, you know, later in the morning, took out the IV, which is nervous. You know, you get a little, it's nerve-wracking, because now you realize I'm on my own when it comes to fluids, and I only got 20 ounces in the previous day, and if I don't get in 60 plus ounces on this day, I could end up back in the hospital on an IV to get fluids back in me. So you're kind of paranoid. But really it wasn't too bad. You know, I probably got 65, 70 ounces in that second day. Huge difference in what you can do from day to day as far as consuming fluids. It's all clear liquids that first day, and that includes Jello if you want to include that. I'm not a huge Jello fan, but it worked out. But you know, after they removed the IV, I was able to take a shower, and then we jumped in a van and headed off to the hotel, the Pueblo Amigo. That was it, just in case you're watching this a year from now. They might have a new hotel, but the Pueblo Amigo is really, really nice hotel. I mean, you know, it's a lot of white glove kind of service. Everybody opens the doors for you. Marble floors, super clean. Rooms are really, really nice. The beds, not perfect. You can tell where they have spots where people sat in the wrong place on the side of the bed for too long, and you kind of have to. My wife and I slept in the separate beds in the room, so we both could sleep on the firm center part of the bed. That would be my only complaint about the hotel, but it was really nice. Not soon after we got there, we jumped in a van and we went sightseeing just for the evening. You know, I think we were with Juanito that night. Great guy, great personality, smiles all the time. And one thing that I kind of thought was going to happen when we got there is that you'd have your own valet. That's not really the case. They have a couple of valets assigned to the hotel, sometimes just one if there's just a couple of patients, and you kind of do things as a group. So keep that in mind. But it's also a really good thing. I wouldn't have it any other way in hindsight. I'm kind of a private person. I may not have opted for that had I known, but really the nice thing is you're kind of out and about and you go see places. You've got 2-3 other people who've just gone through the exact same experience, and so as you're feeling something, you can talk to people about it immediately. It's not like in the States where you go home and you're sitting in your room and you're trying to look things up on the internet. You can ask people and you can talk about it, and it's just a fantastic thing. So that night we went to Caesars. You know, you read about that if you follow BariatricPal at all, which is where the Caesar salad was invented and where all these movie stars used to go and drink and smoke cigars to get out of LA. But really cool restaurant. They give you kind of this French onion base with some bean broth mixed into it. And after not having any real food for a long time, like it's fantastic. The food that my wife was able to consume looked spectacular and amazing. And I was a little jealous, but at the same time, what they say is true. Like, you absolutely have no appetite. Your hunger is gone after you have the procedure, and like, I wasn't even jealous. I looked at it and I'm like, it looks amazing, but I don't feel like I have to have that. I was happy with the broth. We did a little bit of shopping that night, but it was kind of late, so then we went back to the hotel and slept another night. Day 4. Woke up that morning, and it was again, you can kind of do what you want. You can stay in the hotel. There's a big casino down there. You can go out with the valets. We opted to go out. We went sightseeing. They took us to the beach. We went to a farmer's market. We have all kinds of food. My wife really wanted authentic Mexican vanilla, not the extract and artificial crap we get in the U.S. So she bought 2 big giant things of real vanilla with the alcohol and everything in it, and she was on cloud 9 with some of the stuff we found there. And there's other things too, and they have fresh coconuts, and as far as the bariatric patients, like, you can get a coconut and drink the coconut water out of a fresh cut coconut, which is nice. We went back to Revolution Street, which is where all the shopping is, and they have all the little skulls and Mexican hats and all the cultural souvenir stuff that you'd ever want to buy. Day of the Dead figurines everywhere. But it was a lot of fun. My wife had a great time as a companion. The valets are great because they kind of keep track of you, and they do all the translation, and they coach you on where to go and where some better quality stuff is. So that was all really great. That night, Dr. Flores comes to the hotel. I imagine it could be other doctors too, but for us it was Dr. Flores. As you take your bandages off, in my case she asked me to leave them off from that point going forward. I did have to leave my drain bandage on, but the rest of them came off. And then you kind of do, she talks about things, talks about the medications, general Q&A. You can ask questions about recovery and all of that kind of stuff. And then she left. The next morning, we woke up. We had again, they had it all coordinated to where we would meet our valet at a certain time, and we'd jump in a car and go back to San Diego and catch a plane. So that was, that's day 5 technically, after your 4th night. Again, so relaxing to not have to do that yourself, to just have a driver that knows all the processes and procedures and knows when you need your passports and just takes care of everything. That was such a relief and relaxing. So as I'm talking about leaving Tijuana, some other things, man, there are a lot of stereotypes out there. When you're in Tijuana, the experience really feels like you're just in California somewhere. They have Walmarts and grocery stores all over the place that look almost just like stores in America, and you're driving down streets, everything is just, it doesn't really even feel all that foreign. I guess there was a time when Tijuana was not the nicest place in the world, but I think that was probably half a century ago. And it probably has gotten incrementally better over maybe even the last couple decades. It's really improved, but we never once felt threatened. Everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about the people who live there that have nothing to do, just people we interacted with on the street and in restaurants and just, in public, when we go to the beach and we were there. I mean, it was the nicest people in the world. Some of the stuff that you hear, like, oh, you're going to be kidnapped, and don't you feel threatened, and how do you even dare walk out the front door? I felt as comfortable walking out of the hotel and down the street to the supermarket as I would in my own town in Happy Valley, Utah. So it was they're a wonderful people. They're kind and nice and courteous, and I don't really have the context of their history to know why I should have, ever been told that I should be scared. But I thought it was a wonderful people and a wonderful place, and never once felt threatened even for a second. I felt much more threatened, in several downtown areas of the United States. I travel a lot for business, and take whatever I may have possibly felt and times it by 20, and that's how I felt in the U.S. in a lot of downtown areas. So nothing to fear as far as that goes. Again, a thank you. I don't know if any of them would ever see this, but thank you to all the valets and caregivers at the facility. Just a wonderful group of people, and love the experience there. In kind of closing, let's talk about a couple things. Pain. I didn't have any pain, like with my sutures and everything else. Like, I didn't feel pain after that second night. Naturally, if you push on your incisions, even now, at 13 days, and there's some, a little bit of sharp pains as you're transitioning from like some really small little scabs and things on there. But yeah, if you push on them, they're going to be tender. That whole area is tender. But just like sitting, right here like this, after that second night, no pain whatsoever. I was painless, and I think the other two patients felt exactly the same way. Let's see, a conclusion. I would just say research pays off. A lot of people are afraid to go through the experience, to go to Mexico and have a doctor outside the United States. But I can say this comfortably. The care we received at the Oasis of Hope Hospital, and from the caregivers there, meaning the nurses, the valets, and the doctors, Dr. Illan, was better than any inpatient care my wife or I have ever had in the United States. I had a back surgery back in 2004. You're pushing the button, the nurses come whenever they feel like it, like 20 minutes later, and they're you feel like you're an inconvenience every time you ask for something. And my wife has had some non-specific issues to where she's had to have 2 or 3 inpatient procedures to deal with some of those problems, and without fail, whether it was childbirth or some issues related to that years later. It would seem like most of her inpatient experiences in hospitals were very similar to that. Just the general feeling of you're an inconvenience, and nursing staff that's way understaffed, and too many patients to take care of, uncomfortable beds, and just not the greatest care in the world. This was way better than any of those experiences, and it's a staff that truly cares and wants you to be happy and take care of you. Again, they smile, they shake your hand when they come in the room for the first time. Obviously, they're washing their hands and everything else. But I never once felt like an inconvenience, and that was just a massive thing for me, that they really cared. If you're thinking about this, I would say it was a fantastic experience, and I wouldn't hesitate for a second to send a family member of mine down there to do this exact same thing. In fact, I would recommend it. If you're thinking about potentially using Dr. Illan and BariatricPal, don't hesitate. If you want to feel even more comfortable with it, some people don't know this. BariatricPal has a Facebook group that I got on shortly after I started going down the path of believing that Dr. Illan was who I wanted to use. But you can get on this Facebook group, and you can actually not only ask questions, you can watch other patients going through the process. There's lots of posts of people in in their rooms ready to go back, and I did the same thing, where you get to kind of go through the experience with people and see what their experience was, and you also get to see be a part of or an observer of people asking questions and ask questions yourself. They have the operations staff that monitors that Facebook group. The nutritionist monitors it. Dr. Illan himself monitors that group and will answer questions for the group on there. And then the other thing, and I've said this in one of my previous posts, one of the biggest reasons I went this route was the fact that the doctor's accessible. Dr. Illan is multiple times where I had kind of a private question. I can go to Facebook Messenger and Dr. Illan's on there, and you can send him just a Facebook message, and it's always the same day. Naturally, he's in surgery a lot of the time, but sometimes it's minutes before you get a response back, and it's always a very thorough answer to whatever your questions are, and you know it's quite insightful, and you can learn a lot. It doesn't require a visit to the office where you're made to feel like you're an inconvenience, where you pay $150 for 5 minutes of a handful of questions. You don't deal with any of that. You ask him a question, he's going to answer it because he knows you're a patient, and you know he's going to get his money from this whole thing, and knows that that comes at a great bit of sacrifice for most patients. So that's kind of part of his service, and he was always fantastic. He's still fantastic, you know, a week post-op. I'll throw in my stats, you know, my high weight, right about the time I did my first post, 304 pounds. My surgery weight was 284, and now 1 week post-op, I am 274. So I've lost 30 pounds in 2.5 weeks, which is pretty exciting. I've actually been idling at about the same weight for 2.5 days now, which has actually given me a little bit of peace because I felt like I was losing it too fast. And you know, we all worry about hair loss and some of these other things, but you know, so far down 30 pounds in just 2.5, 3 weeks is fantastic progress so far, and I can already feel a difference. Looking forward to my target weight of about 200 pounds. Probably another post coming up to talk a little bit about pre-op and post-op diet stuff that I experienced, you know, recommendations maybe that I wish I had going into that process, and you know, some experiences there. So stay tuned. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, particularly if you're looking at leaving the country, and feel free to ask me any questions. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.